I'll begin with the hook and introduction only, following the outline. A sharp crack echoed across the auditorium floor. Then my knees gave out. Catch her. The applause that had filled the nursing pinning ceremony turned into gasps as two instructors rushed toward me before my head hit the stage. My classmates still held their candles, frozen in place, while someone shouted for an ambulance. Only seconds earlier, I had smiled as my nursing pin was placed on my uniform. Now I couldn't feel my hands. As the ceiling lights blurred together, I heard fragments of voices. She's not responding normally. Does she have family here? I'll call her emergency contacts. Everything faded. When I opened my eyes again, bright hospital lights had replaced the stage lights. A nurse noticed my eyes moving. Welcome back, Maureen. Try not to sit up yet. The first thing I asked was barely a whisper. My parents, are they here? The nurse hesitated just long enough for me to notice. Then the hospital room door opened. It wasn't my mother. It wasn't my father. It was my Aunt Linda, still wearing the clothes she'd apparently thrown on in a hurry, her hair uncombed, her purse hanging halfway off her shoulder. She hurried to my bedside and squeezed my hand. I'm here, sweetheart. Just not the two people the hospital had called over and over again. The doctors explained they wanted to keep me overnight. My collapse could have been caused by several things, and they weren't willing to guess until more tests came back. While they spoke, another nurse quietly reviewed my chart. We attempted both parents several times, she said to my aunt. There wasn't any response. My aunt simply nodded. I came as soon as I answered. She avoided looking directly at me. That bothered me more than anything. After years of clinical rotations, I knew what people looked like when they were holding something back. Hours later, when the room finally became quiet, Aunt Linda pulled out her phone. I wasn't going to show you this today, she said softly, but I don't think hiding it helps. She turned the screen toward me. My brother had uploaded a beach selfie. Behind him, my parents laughed under a bright umbrella. The caption read, "Best beach vacation ever. No drama this time." I stared at the timestamp. The post had gone up during the exact window the hospital had been trying to reach them. My fingers tightened around the blanket. I didn't comment. I didn't call. I simply locked my phone and handed it back. The silence in the room became heavier than any diagnosis. The following morning, another physician entered with my latest test results. "We still need to monitor you," he said. "We don't want to miss an underlying condition." I nodded automatically, but my thoughts weren't on blood work or heart monitors anymore. They were on one impossible question. If my parents had ignored every call when I collapsed, why would they suddenly try so desperately to reach me just a few days later? The steady beeping of the heart monitor became the soundtrack of the next 2 days. Every time a nurse walked into my room, Aunt Linda stood up first. "I've got her insurance card. I already signed where I'm allowed. I'll stay if she's being taken for another test." She handled every question my parents should have been answering without complaining once. One afternoon, after a cardiology consult, she looked at me and asked quietly, "Have you eaten anything today?" I managed a weak smile. "You're still taking care of me." "I always will." That simple answer hit harder than anything the doctors had said. As the hours passed, memories I usually pushed aside kept resurfacing. Working late shifts during nursing school so I could help with bills. Skipping outings because my brother needed money for another trip. Watching my parents miss my academic awards because his games always came first. Even when I graduated at the top of my class, Mom only said, "Your brother's under a lot of pressure right now. Don't make today about yourself." Back then, I'd convinced myself she didn't mean it the way it sounded. Now I wasn't so sure. The nurses noticed, too. During one medication check, one of them glanced around the empty room before smiling at my aunt. "So, you're her mom." Aunt Linda shook her head. "I'm just the one who came." The nurse's expression fell, but she said nothing else. That evening, Aunt Linda finally admitted, the hospital didn't just call once, Maureen. They left multiple urgent voicemails. I stared at the blanket. There has to be another explanation. She didn't argue. She simply reached over and squeezed my hand. 2 days later, after I was finally strong enough to check my phone, the screen lit up with notification after notification. 83 missed calls. Dozens of texts. Only one message from my mother stood out. We need you. Call us now. No, how are you? No, are you okay? No apology. Just a demand. I looked toward Aunt Linda. She met my eyes and said quietly, don't call until you know why they suddenly need you. The next morning, curiosity got the better of me. I opened my brother's social media page. The vacation hadn't stopped after I was admitted to the hospital. There were new photos of boat rides, seafood dinners, sunsets on the beach, and smiling family selfies. Under every post, friends congratulated them on making great memories. Then I noticed something else. One of my nursing classmates had commented beneath a photo. Isn't Maureen still in the hospital? Another replied, she collapsed during our pinning ceremony. We're all worried about her. For the first time, the perfect image my parents projected online was colliding with reality. Before I could process it, my phone rang again. Mom! I looked at Aunt Linda. She nodded, put it on speaker. I answered. Finally, my mother said without greeting me, we need your help. I waited. We have some paperwork that needs to be handled. There are medical forms, insurance questions, and we need you to explain a few things so this misunderstanding doesn't get any worse. I frowned. You haven't asked if I'm okay. Silence. Then my father cleared his throat. Can we stay focused? No, I said evenly. Why didn't either of you come to the hospital? We've already talked about this, my mother snapped. We were away. That doesn't answer the question. Before she could respond, my brother's voice drifted into the call. I told you all those hospital calls were going to ruin the vacation. The line went completely silent. No one corrected him. No one claimed he was mistaken. I closed my eyes. So, you knew. My mother immediately tried to interrupt. Maureen, that's not what he... I ended the call. Within an hour, relatives began messaging me. Your parents say you're refusing to help them. Why are you shutting them out? At first, I couldn't understand how the story had spread so quickly. Then classmates who had witnessed my collapse started responding publicly, explaining exactly what had happened at the ceremony and how no parent had shown up afterward. The version my parents had been telling people began falling apart. Without saying a word, Aunt Linda unlocked her phone and slid it across my hospital tray. On the screen were screenshots showing the hospital's repeated calls, time-stamped alongside my family's beach photos posted during those same minutes. There was no longer any doubt they had known. The screenshots changed everything. Instead of slowing down, the calls from my parents became relentless. When I blocked one number, another appeared. Then another. Voicemails piled up. Maureen, pick up. This has gone far enough. We're your family. Not once did they ask whether the doctors had found the cause of my collapse. After my physician cleared me for discharge, I requested copies of the hospital's communication log for my own records. A staff member reviewed the file with me. We documented every attempt to reach your emergency contacts, she explained. Several calls went to voicemail, and one was answered before the conversation ended. The timestamps matched Aunt Linda's screenshots almost exactly. There was no missing piece anymore. The hospital had reached them while they were posting smiling vacation photos. A few days later, Aunt Linda received another call from one of our relatives. After she hung up, she looked at me carefully. I think you deserve to know why they're suddenly desperate. I nodded. Your brother rented a boat during the trip. He ignored the safety briefing, caused an accident, and now there are insurance investigators asking questions. Medical bills and liability claims are piling up. I stared at her. So that's why Mom wanted me. You're the only medical professional in the family, Aunt Linda said. They think you can explain medical paperwork, help them deal with insurance, and maybe even contribute financially. Every strange detail finally fit together. The demanding text, the endless calls, their refusal to discuss my hospitalization. None of it had been about me. The next morning, I scheduled a consultation with an attorney before returning a single call. From that point forward, every conversation would be documented. When my parents finally reached me again, my father said, "Let's keep this in the family." I answered calmly, "The truth stopped being private the moment you ignored the hospital." There was a long silence. Then Aunt Linda placed one more document on the table. "Maureen," she said quietly, "there's one thing they've never told you about those hospital calls." I looked at Aunt Linda. What haven't they told me? She took a slow breath before answering. "The hospital did reach your mother." I felt my stomach tighten. They actually spoke. She nodded. I was standing at the nurse's station when the charge nurse finally got through. She explained that you had collapsed during your nursing pinning ceremony, that you were being evaluated, and that the doctors wanted immediate family there. I waited. What did Mom say? Aunt Linda looked down for a moment before meeting my eyes. She asked whether you were awake. And when the nurse said you were still undergoing tests, your mother replied, "If it becomes serious, call again. We're several hours away." Then she ended the call. The room fell completely silent. For years, I had searched for explanations every time I was overlooked. Maybe they were busy. Maybe they forgot. Maybe next time would be different. But there was no misunderstanding left to defend. They had known, and they had chosen to stay. A few days later, I agreed to meet my parents in my attorney's office. The meeting lasted less than 30 minutes. My mother slid a folder across the table. "We just need your help getting through this." My attorney spoke before I could. "My client would first like to know why neither of you responded appropriately after being informed of her medical emergency." Neither of them answered. Instead, my father repeated, "We're family. Families help each other." I pushed the folder back. Families also show up. No one spoke. Finally, I stood. The moment you decided a vacation mattered more than coming to the hospital, you stopped being the people I could depend on. I walked out with Aunt Linda beside me. That was the last time I tried to convince my parents to love me the way I needed them to. The truth eventually spread through our extended family. Hospital call records confirmed the timeline. The screenshots showed my parents posting cheerful vacation photos while emergency calls were coming in. The story they had been telling, that I had unfairly abandoned them, collapsed under the facts. Relatives who had once pressured me to help the family stopped calling with advice. Instead, many quietly apologized. Without my assistance, my parents had to deal with the insurance investigation, legal claims, and financial consequences of my brother's boating accident on their own. For the first time, my brother couldn't rely on me to solve a crisis he had helped create. A month later, I accepted an offer to begin my career as a registered nurse. One of the first forms I completed asked for emergency contacts. I removed both of my parents. In their place, I wrote one name: Linda. On my first day of hospital orientation, I pinned my nursing badge beside the same nursing pin I had earned before everything changed. When I looked into the audience afterward, my aunt was there, smiling proudly. She had been there when I opened my eyes in the hospital. She was there when I started the next chapter of my life. I finally understood something I had spent 23 years trying to learn. Family isn't defined by who receives the phone call. It's defined by who answers it. The day I collapsed, I learned who would come when I couldn't stand, and that became the foundation of the life I built afterward.